The following program is sponsored by CBN.
Coming up,
Andrew wasn't around anymore.
the story of a prodigal son,
That will take your breath away.
as told by his mother.
I would spend hours in my closet upstairs.
Her fight to keep her family together,
We felt like we were doing the right thing, giving him a safe place to live.
and why she had to let it all go.
We are doing you more harm than good.
On today's 700 Club. Welcome to the 700 Club. House Democrats have introduced a resolution to censure President Trump over the tweets aimed at 4 of their progressive members.
The representatives fired back at the president in a press conference yesterday. Then this morning, Trump tweeted that the House should rebuke them. Caitlin Burke has the story.
The lawmakers on the receiving end of President Trump's latest attacks responded with a mixed message. Some saying they'll stay focused on policy issues. Others calling for the president's removal from office.
I encourage the American people and all of us in this room and beyond to not take the bait.
That's why we fight for education for all children through college. And so we'll stay focused on our agenda.
So it is time for us to stop allowing this president to make a mockery out of our Constitution. It's time for us to impeach this president.
This after a string of tweets and comments over the last 48 hours attacking the 4 women who have been vocal about their opposition for the administration's immigration policy.
As far as I'm concerned, if you hate our country, if you're not happy here, you can leave.
In the tweets, President Trump claimed the 4 progressive Democrat congresswomen come from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe.
They're socialists, definitely. As to whether or not they're communists, I would think they might be. But this isn't what our country is about.
On Monday, the president made clear he was talking about these 4, known as the Squad, only one of whom was born outside of the U.S., Representative Ilhan Omar, a Somalia refugee.
When she talked about the World Trade Center being knocked down, some people, you remember the famous some people. These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country.
And President Trump isn't fazed by those calling his comments racist.
It doesn't concern me because many people agree with me.
The 4 have all been critical of the president. Some have publicly feuded with their own party leaders over issues like impeachment and costly proposals like the Green New Deal. Representative Omar has been accused of anti-Semitism and forced to apologize for tweets critical of Israel and lawmakers who support the Jewish state. President Trump's ally, Senator Lindsey Graham, agreed with the president on some things.
We all know that AOC and this crowd are a bunch of communists. They hate Israel. They hate our own country.
But advised him to take it down a notch.
Aim higher. We don't need to know anything about them personally. Talk about their policy.
House Democrats have introduced a measure censoring the president for his remarks. It could come to the floor for a vote as early as today. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Well, get ready to rumble. This is just a foretaste of what's going to happen all the way up until November in 2020. This is just going to get ratcheted up. I wish Trump, I think a lot of people wish Trump would stop tweeting so much. But at the same time, you look at this and go, what have we become as a country? The name calling, the calls for impeachment. You can't impeach a president over a tweet. How do we ever come together? And how do we ever come to a point where we can actually govern ourselves? If this kind of division continues to go on and go on unchecked, I start to look at our future and go, is there any hope here? It's really time for Christians to, on both sides of the aisle, to get together to say, how can we first ratchet down the rhetoric, realize we're all in this together. We're all Americans. We all want a better future for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren. How can we come to compromise? How can we come to effective legislation? If we're just going to sit here and name call one another, then there's no hope for us. How do we come together in Congress, in the Senate, in the administration and say, Let's get to business and let's start running America. In other news, the Trump administration is taking on the rise of anti-Semitism right here in America. Ephraim Graham has more from our CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the Justice Department is working to fight the rise in attacks on Jewish people in America. It's bringing together members of the Trump administration with members of the Jewish community for a summit on combating anti-Semitism.
Of course, it is one thing for the nation to pull together in condemning anti-Semitism when confronted with front-page stories about horrific shootings, as in Pittsburgh and Poway. But far too often, Jews and Jewish communities in America suffer outside the spotlight. These attacks and others like them in communities across the country, sadly, are less well known outside the Jewish community. But they form the daily background of concerns about security and safety that many in the Jewish community feel.
Other speakers from yesterday included Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and FBI Director Christopher Wray, speaking on topics such as anti-Semitism on college campuses and prosecuting hate crimes. The fastest growing church in the world just might be in the Islamic Republic of Iran. CBN News talked with those who've witnessed firsthand the large number of Iranians turning to Christ. We've hidden the identity of the believers in this story for their safety. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has more.
The image Iran presents to the world is large demonstrations with shouts of death to America and death to Israel. Those who have seen Iran from the inside, however, paint a very different picture.
You can't believe the images on TV because, for example, all the protests that you see in the streets, those are mostly contrived. There are young students in the streets and they've told us, if we don't go to the streets, we won't get our grades, so we're forced to go and protest.
We've hidden the identity of this Iranian church worker. He says there are two Irans, the one you see on the news and the other hidden from the world.
Yes, I would say there's a 10% Iran and a 90% Iran. 10% control the country in a more oppressive manner, hardline, religious manner, and then the majority of the people, 90% of the people, love America. They don't hate Americans. I think that's the message that Americans need to hear. They tell us all the time, we don't hate Americans, we love America.
He wants Americans to know that 40 years after Iran's Islamic Revolution, there's another spiritual revolution underway.
Awaken to the truth that we live in a time that's very special. More people have come to faith in Iran in the last 40 years than the previous 1,400 years. So there's a once, not only in a lifetime, but in history, where we have a moment where Iranians are coming to faith at such a rapid rate.
Frontiers Alliance International is producing a documentary called Sheep Among Wolves to introduce the Iranian church to Christians worldwide.
What's taking place in Iran right now is spectacular. It's the fastest growing church in the world that owns no buildings, has no 501c3s, that owns no property, that has no bank accounts, that has no centralized leadership, that has no denominational leanings, and yet it's multiplying like crazy. What the Lord is doing there is staggering.
And that results in intense persecution that Thomas says leads Iranian believers to seek prayer, but not in a way you may think.
Typically the way we pray is, we expect that they want us to pray for the persecution to end. And they say, no, don't do that. Persecution is growing the church. When the persecution stops, the growth stops. What we want is for the gospel to spread far and wide and deep in Iran.
With Iran and the U.S. on the brink of war, Thomas says it's important to see what's happening behind the Iranian veil.
When Muslims from Iran come in contact with the man from Nazareth, something beautiful happens. And when they realize that they've been bought and saved and purchased with Jewish blood, prophesied by Jewish prophets in the Jewish Bible, something crazy happens, something beautiful happens, and that's what we're seeing take place in Iran.
Thomas believes one day the world may wake up to find Iran's church growth in the 21st century rivaling that of China and Korea in the last century. Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
And religious freedom will be the topic of CBN's exclusive interview with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's sitting down with our chief political correspondent, David Brody, to share his take on religious freedom in America and around the world. You can see it today on our Faith Nation program and on the CBN News channel, and tomorrow morning right here on the 700 Club. Terry?
Well, up next, inside the mind of the Supreme Court's senior justice, See how Clarence Thomas fights for the lost Constitution after this.
Well, last fall, Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court despite severe accusations of sexual misconduct. It wasn't the first time a nominee faced such charges. Clarence Thomas was narrowly confirmed after a contentious hearing in 1991. Since then, Justice Thomas has made his mark on the High Court. Take a look.
Today, Clarence Thomas is the longest-serving current justice on the Supreme Court, and some analysts say he's become one of the most influential. And since he took his place on the bench, Thomas has been a prolific writer. His judicial opinions have been widely discussed in law schools and among judges. Thomas has been a consistent originalist, believing in interpreting the Constitution just as its authors intended, as opposed to the idea that interpretations of the Constitution should change with the times. And as author Myron Magnet says in his new book, Clarence Thomas and the Lost Constitution, Thomas's opinions are a blueprint for future justices to return to the original meaning of the Constitution.
Well, joining us now is the author of Clarence Thomas and the Lost Constitution, Myron Magnet, and welcome to the 700 Club.
Such a pleasure to be with you. Good morning, Gordon.
Well, in our introduction, we brought up Kavanaugh, which naturally leads to a discussion of Anita Hill. What do you think was going through Justice Thomas's mind during the nomination battle for Kavanaugh?
You know that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I think that's probably what he was thinking. The left was playing exactly the same playbook that they ran against him. And, down to even the can of Coke that Christine Blasey Ford asked for in the hearings. And if you thought that there was any truth in what Anita Hill said 28 years ago, seeing exactly the same charade go on almost 3 decades later shows you that there is nothing that the left won't do to assassinate a character, to keep an originalist off the court, because they want to hang on to this incredible lever of power that they have. I think now that part of what makes the bitterness of today's politics is that we have two separate theories of what the legitimacy of our government rests on. On the Clarence Thomas side, you have the Constitution of Liberty, which guarantees each citizen's right to pursue his own happiness in his own way, in his family, in his local community, and expects self-reliance. On the other hand, on the left, you have the Fairness Party, which believes that the government exists to make rules, to make people equal, to make things fair, and that constitutes real democracy in its concern for workers, the poor, the weak, the excluded. And the only thing that party doesn't get is that this is not representative self-government. It is being ruled by experts. And it is precisely that kind of being ruled as opposed to self-government that Clarence Thomas's whole jurisprudence is an effort to reverse. If you read his writings over the last 28 years, you see that he lays out a history of the 3 stages by which our original Constitution of Liberty got subverted. And he lays out, as you say, this roadmap for how to get back to it. And what he says is, you know what, we don't hesitate when the people's elected Congress passes a law that we think is unconstitutional to say, sorry, we overturn it. So judges, being human, obviously are fallible. And if we look back, and it's our constant duty to look back over our own work, if we look back and think our esteemed predecessors have made a mistake, we need to say so and we need to reverse. So when our predecessors gutted the 14th Amendment and allowed 90 years of Jim Crow in the South, we should say that was a mistake and we should overturn it. When the New Deal court took control of the whole economy, something that the Constitution doesn't give them, We should say they made a mistake by doing so and overturn it. When the Warren Court created all these rights for criminals, for unruly students, for unruly residents of housing projects that don't exist in the Constitution but only exist in the minds of a bunch of liberal judges, we should overrule it. When the court gives us a right to abortion that exists nowhere in the Constitution, we should overrule it. So there is Clarence Thomas saying, let's get rid of this stuff. Just 2 weeks ago, he wrote a majority opinion for the court in a very technical case, but the last paragraph of it says, and by the way, this whole case turns on a precedent that is actually incorrect. We overrule it. He's speaking for the majority of the court here. So I think that we now see how the stages by which the Constitution has been subverted can be reversed. And an interesting fact is that 20% of the judges whom the Trump administration has elevated to the federal bench are ex-Clarence Thomas clerks whom he has mentored and fostered now over 28 years and made into a kind of little family. So not only has he given us this roadmap of how to restore the original Constitution of liberty, which 232 years after the Constitutional Convention remains the most avant-garde idea of government in its protection of individual liberty. Not only has he given us this roadmap, but he's given us the troops who can carry out the program.
Let's talk
so I think I think he'll be seen as the most consequential jurist of our era 100 years from now.
Well, let's talk about how he got here, because it's an unlikely story, and you give us the roadmap for that in your book. One of the things that really stuck out for me is, as a graduate of Yale University, he found that because employers thought that he was admitted to Yale based on some kind of preference, based on the color of his skin, he could not find a job. And so he took a price tag off a cigar, put that on his diploma, and then put it down in his basement because he said, this degree is now worthless to me. How did you get that story?
That's exactly right. Well, he tells that story in his wonderful memoir, My Grandfather's Son, because he was raised by this extraordinary man. And, you know, Clarence Thomas's story, it's not quite a log cabin to the White House, but it is a kerosene-lit shanty in a Georgia swamp to the High Court bench. And when he was 7, his mother, now divorced, moved him and his little brother to a Savannah slum. He grew up under segregation after a year of incredible poverty in which he was cold and hungry all the time. His mother realized she couldn't keep the kid, sent him to her father and stepmother, only a few blocks away, but her father was this extraordinary man, this self-made man who had got religion. He'd converted to Catholicism. He sent his grandsons to Catholic school to get a very rigid, God-centered education where the nuns taught them that all men are created equal and therefore segregation was wrong. This in segregated Savannah. And his grandfather put the boys to work delivering oil after school and on weekends, and they had a farm across the street from where their ancestors had been enslaved. And he put them to work farming every summer, so that this is a guy who learned self-reliance by being self-reliant. Okay, he goes to seminary because he wants to be the first black priest in Savannah. And there he discovers real racism, becomes angry, drops out of seminary, goes to Holy Cross, meets with more racism, becomes an angry black radical. And he ends up, at the end of his junior year, going to a demonstration in Harvard Square that turns into a full-scale riot with businesses vandalized and burned, cops pulled out and beat up. And he goes back to Holy Cross in the morning, and he goes into the chapel, and he prays to God to relieve him of this anger, which is going to ruin his life. But he's watching, meanwhile, and he says to himself, do I really believe that this is a country of opportunity? He says, I really believe it. Do I really believe, Mr. Jefferson, that this is a country that believes all men are created equal? I believe it. So he then goes back to the maxims of his grandfather, that where there's a will, there's a way. And although his grandfather was a lifelong Democrat, these maxims are conservatism, right? Walk humbly with God, do your duty, be self-reliant. And this is what Thomas discovered. And he also discovered when he was seeing affirmative action only just really getting underway when he got to Holy Cross, and then in full swing when he gets to Yale Law School, he sees that you take kids who are smart but unprepared and put them in an institution that's a rung or two above their abilities, and kids who would in other circumstances succeed beautifully fail and become resentful and angry and take courses that are easy and either drop out or become angry and don't live up to their potential. So from there, he goes into the government. The only job he can get is with Attorney General, the Attorney General of Missouri, and who takes him to Washington with him. And there he gets picked up by the Reagan administration and becomes a government administrator and involved with civil rights. And he's looking at affirmative action from the point of view of a bureaucrat, of a high bureaucrat. And he says, is this doing anybody any good, or is it just making its supposed beneficiaries resentful? And is it making everybody else look at them as if they're inferior, as if they could not make it without this special hand up? And what he finally comes to the conclusion of is that in America, this is an opportunity society. You have to make it by yourself, and there is no government solution to the problems of Black Americans now that we actually had the 1964 Civil Rights Act, now that we have actually spent half a century where the center of our politics is getting rid of racism and making opportunity for anybody who is willing to walk through the door. And so Clarence, if you look at his jurisprudence, Clarence Thomas is very focused on the idea of making sure that Black communities are safe, that education in inner cities is really functional to make people have careers and be citizens, but otherwise to leave people free to make their own fates and make them responsible for themselves. And he says you cannot have a free republic such as the Founding Fathers envisioned unless you have free citizens. It takes a special kind of character to be capable of liberty. And that means that you have to be self-reliant. You have to say, wait a minute, I'm not a victim. I actually can overcome circumstances. I can overcome adversity, and I can make my own fate. And incidentally, when you look at people who do this, when you look at the George Washingtons of the world, or the Marie Curies, the George Washington Carvers, what do you see? You see people who not only made their own fate, but who changed the world for the better. And this is the kind of republic that the framers tried to give us. And we need to have the kind of culture which produces the characters who can take advantage of this liberty that the framers so magnificently imagined for us.
The book is called Clarence Thomas and the Lost Constitution. We've just scratched the surface of it. It's available wherever books are sold. And thank you so much for being with us. That was
such a pleasure. Thank you.
Tara?
Well, coming up, a young woman struggles with the cycle of abuse.
I completely just shrunk into myself, and I went right back into panic mode.
Find out why her year of pain ended overnight when we come back.
Dana Goodrum craved her father's attention until he showed up dead drunk at one of her softball games. After that, Dana started looking for approval elsewhere, leading to a cycle of bad relationships and abuse.
I had my master's degree. I was exceptional when it came to education. I was fantastic when it came to moving up the ranks in any profession. But when it came to relationships, I was a disaster.
Dana Goodrum's life was torn between two worlds. Raised Catholic, she understood what it meant to be and do good. But more than that, there was a deep longing to be seen and affirmed, especially by her alcoholic father.
I constantly just tried to impress him. I tried to get his approval. I did well in school. My sports were exceptional. It wasn't enough.
However, it was one of her middle school softball games that served as a turning point in her heart, when she decided to look elsewhere for acceptance.
He showed up so wasted, and I was pitching. And he stood behind the backstop.
Come on now.
And he was rattling the cage. And he was like, "Come on, Dana Joe, pitch the ball." And he was cursing. And I just thought about all the times that I wished he was there, and now he's there, and I wanted nothing but for him to just leave. Because of that, I remember seeking approval elsewhere. I was doing hard drugs at 14, and the drinking group is unfortunately where I found my relationships with men.
From her early teens until her sophomore year of college, Dana struggled with drugs and alcohol, but quit when she met a man whom she eventually had her son with and then married. Despite his verbal abuse and cheating, she stayed with him for 2 years until they divorced.
This is the man who's supposed to protect me, protect my feelings, my confidence, and I completely just shrunk into myself. It was that feeling of rejection, and I went right back into panic mode.
Even though her world was shaken, Dana went back to college and received her master's, which helped her land a good job. She also landed in another abusive relationship and had her daughter. She left him after 2 years and continued the cycle with yet another abusive man.
I didn't care about anything. I didn't think that life itself could get any worse.
Unfortunately, it did. Dana lost her job. Then shortly after ending what would be her last toxic relationship, she found out she was pregnant. In desperation, she got an abortion.
I knew at that moment I was going to hell. I think that people assume that it is an easy decision, and it is not. I was in a fog. I was terrified.
Jobless and at rock bottom, she and her children were now living in a one-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood, just surviving.
I had applied to 152 jobs and got rejected by every single one.
Finally, Dana called her mom, who shared how Jesus had recently changed her life. Then she told Dana he could do the same for her, and all she had to do was lift up her hands and give it all to God.
I listened to my mom. I got down on my knees. I lifted up my hands to the ceiling, and I just said, "God, I know you are probably so mad at me. I cannot do this on my own anymore. I said, I just can't." And I started crying. Everything was just coming out. I was crying about the abortion. I was crying about the guys. I was crying about my dad. I was crying about my kids. You know, the people that I had let around them, the situations that I had put them in. And I just released it all. I started to follow him that night. I woke up the next day and I got 2 phone calls with job offers the very next day. But bigger than that, It was me knowing, one, that God heard me, and two, that he wasn't mad at me, that I hadn't exceeded his grace, that I hadn't surpassed his mercy, that I wasn't going to hell. And that was bigger than any job offer. And all of a sudden, my entire perspective and outlook shifted, and I started to understand his reckless pursuit for me.
Dana began attending church, got baptized, and now continually inspires others with her testimony. Through giving her life to the Lord, she's come to understand the deep, affirming love of her Father in heaven, and that there's no need to search for any other approval than his.
Even though my earthly dad may have failed me, my Father in heaven was with me the entire time. I can stand here firm in my faith and be able to speak to other women and speak to children who are in that place and tell them confidently and boldly who their father is, even when their earthly parents fail them.
When your earthly mother and father fail you, the Lord will raise you up. That's his promise. He loves you. He wants good things for you. And what Dana finally did, she finally said, that's when I started to follow him. You can have a lifetime of belief, but it's until you start to follow him, to say, this is the way I'm going to go. No longer my way, but I'm going to do it God's way. That's when things just start miraculously happening, where your whole life turns around. You can have all kinds of intellectual belief to say, yes, Jesus came. Yes, he died on the cross for me. Yes, he rose again. But until you have that point, Jesus, I want to follow you. If you want to do it on your way, well, just what happened to Dana, just look at it. Her way didn't lead anywhere. But God's way leads to wonderful things. And here's the most wonderful thing: the security of knowing that you're with him, and you're with him for all eternity. If you're watching right now and you made a decision for Christ at some point, and then for whatever reason you started following your own way, you got trapped into various things. For Dana, it was abusive relationships, all set up by missing the love of her father. For you, what is it that's holding you back? What is it from keeping you from being all in to saying, I want to know Jesus. I want to hear him day by day. I want to be with him the rest of my life. I want to be with him for all eternity. Let today be the day. Just as Dana's, this is the day I started following him. I gave up everything else for him. If this is for you, bow your head with me. Let's pray a very simple prayer and let God do all the rest. Pray with me. Jesus. That's right. Say his name. Jesus. I come to you, and Lord, I ask forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness for my stubborn ways. I ask that you forgive me for following my own path, trying to make it on my own. And Jesus, I turn to you, and I ask that you fill me with your love. I ask that you restore to me the joy of salvation. And Jesus, I want to follow you all the days of my life. I want to do life your way. Hear my prayer. Come into my heart. Make me new. Restore me. For I ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. If you prayed with me, I want you to let somebody know. We've made it easy. All you have to do is call us. 1-800-700-7000. When you call, ask for a new day. It's a free packet. There's a CD teaching. What do you do now? How do you live the Christian life? It's all free. Make the call. 1-800-700-7000. Terry, over to you.
Still ahead, a mother who suspected her son was abusing drugs and then found out the truth was much worse.
And he had an alibi for everything. But I didn't have any idea he'd gone to cocaine and then he'd gone to heroin. I had no idea about that.
Now find out why she says she was just as bad as her son. That's later on today's show.
And welcome back to the 700 Club for this CBN News Break. Planned Parenthood and other clinics receiving federal funding can no longer make abortion referrals. The Trump administration announced the new regulations will now be enforced. Planned Parenthood says it will continue to fight the measure. Students for Life's Kristen Hawkins said ending the connection between abortion and family planning is a victory for common sense health care. Johnny Erickson Tata is cancer-free, thanking her supporters for their ongoing prayers. The 69-year-old quadriplegic author, speaker, and founder of Johnny and Friends received the good news after a PET scan. She said, quote, given the aggressive nature of that reoccurring cancer, the news is quite miraculous. She was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer 8 years ago and underwent a mastectomy and chemotherapy. Remember, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website. It's cbnnews.com. Gordon and Terry are back with more of today's 700 Club. It's coming up right after this.
Like most first-time moms, Mrs. Lee adored her baby son. So when she found out he needed life-saving surgery that she and her husband could never afford, she went from door to door with her baby, begging her neighbors for money.
Mrs. Lee had almost given up her dream of having a child when one of her friends told her about an abandoned child she'd found on the side of the road.
When he looked at me, it was almost like he was saying, "Please be my mommy and take me home."
So Mrs. Lee and her husband adopted the child and named him Ming-Xing.
Ming-Xing means bright star. He was a superstar in my heart, and I wanted his future to be full of hope and light.
But soon after, Ming-Xing had a heart attack. A doctor said he had a hole in his heart and needed surgery or he'd die.
I feel like my shooting star was losing its light. My tears were like a broken beads. But Ming-Xing just took his hands and wiped my tears away.
Then Mr. Lee had a head injury and couldn't work. That meant Mrs. Lee had to take over responsibility for everything, including saving for surgery and taking care of Ming-Xing.
I feel like I had to watch him all the time, or he would have a heart attack and die.
The hole in Ming-Xing's heart grew, and when he tried to run, he fell.
His face was blue and his mouth was purple. He began to gasp and started to suffocate.
From then on, Ming-Xing wasn't allowed to play with anyone. His only friend was a toy monkey. Mrs. Lee went door to door asking for money, but never made or collected enough for surgery.
I was afraid that one day the hole would get so big that it would be like a mouth and swallow up his heart.
Then she heard about CBN and wrote us a letter.
He said, "If you don't help Ming-Xing, he might die. You are his only hope."
We quickly responded and set up free surgery.
Now the hole in his heart is gone and he has a new life. He's completely recovered and happy every day. And his eyes are full of light. Thank you for giving Ming-Xing a bright future, as bright as the stars. It's all I ever wanted for him.
Can you imagine if you're a parent knowing that your child has something wrong with them physically that could actually take their life, and there's nothing you can do about it? You could never save enough money for the procedure that could fix what the problem was. Well, that was Mrs. Lee's scenario, and so many like her. 700 Club members, you know, we're able to respond to help when someone lets us know about scenarios like this because of your kindness and generosity. It's amazing to me to think that we can all sit comfortably in our homes and make a life-changing difference in the lives of little children around the world who have needs like this. We just want to say thank you to you. To the rest of you, if you haven't joined the 700 Club, today's a great day to do it. It's 65 cents a day, $20 a month. You'll be joining with thousands of us. We're out to touch the world with the love of Christ, and we'd like to invite you to be a part of that. It's so simple. You do it by calling our toll-free number, 1-800-700-7000, or you can log on to cbn.com. Just say, I want to join the 700 Club. We welcome you right away, and our way of saying thank you is to send you Pat's teaching called The Plan. How do you discover God's plan and purpose for your life? That's what's in here. We want you to have it. It's all from the Word of God. Call now, because there are people like Mrs. Lee and her son waiting to hear from someone like you and me saying, I'm willing to make a difference. So will you call, Gordon?
Well, still to come, one mom's impossible decision, kicking her own son out of the house.
I said, Andrew, we are doing you more harm than good. Get your book bag, whatever you want in your book bag, get it out of here. You cannot live here anymore. You have to leave.
See what brought this family back together when we return.
In her own house, under her own nose, Nancy Chalmers' son got hooked on drugs. His addiction escalated from pills to cocaine to heroin. Soon, Nancy learned that he was also forging prescriptions to feed his addiction. She spent endless hours crying out to God and soon realized that her son wasn't the only one who needed to be saved.
Was beginning to appear that Andrew wasn't around anymore. It wasn't my son that was walking in the door whenever he came, and there wasn't really any point in listening to what he said because none of it was true anyway, or it was so mixed up with truth, who could tell?
From the outside, Nancy Chalmers and her family seem to have everything figured out.
We've always attended church. We grew up that way. I just always incorporated what we call the American dream into that. You know, all those dreams you have to have the perfect little house, the perfect children. I thought it was just the way you live.
When her son Andrew got older, he claimed to have ADHD. This would require prescription medication. But Nancy soon became suspicious because he kept changing doctors. She decided to go with him when he had a new appointment.
He comes out in 22 minutes with 5 prescriptions. That will take your breath away. He'd sell half, use half. Have money to go pay another psychiatrist.
Andrew moved back in with his parents. Soon, things began missing around the house.
Your spoons, like, used to have 12 spoons in this drawer. What are happening to my spoons? Didn't dawn on me. I mean, I knew he did the pills, but I didn't have any idea he'd gone to cocaine and then he'd gone to heroin. I had no idea about that. And he had an alibi for everything. And you keep wanting to fix it. Surely we can find the right doctor, the right situation. I didn't really have hope that God healed it. I didn't see any healing growing up. I saw people learning to live with their condition and thinking, how sad, my family's stuck with this. We felt like we were doing the right thing, giving him a safe place to live, because you don't want him to go live with a bunch of people, and get worse. And all the time, praying and crying, I would spend hours in my closet upstairs. Asking God to grab hold of him and change him. The Lord showed me that I was as sick as my son. My need to please, my need to make things all right, my need to fix, not have anyone think badly of me, all of those great needs that we have, we've built our own little tower of who we are, just came crumbling down. I realized I lied to myself and other people all the time, which placed me right at the same foot of the cross that Andrew was. the same level.
Then Nancy received a letter that made her realize she couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore.
And I'm opening the mail as I come in, and it looks like an invoice from a psychiatrist. And I just sit down, the first chair I can get, and it blows me away. He said, "Here are copies of prescriptions that I did not write." And it was on his prescription pad paper. The accusation really was that Andrew had written the prescription. I knew we were done. We were done. I said, "Andrew, God has just told me that we are doing you more harm than good. Here's the accusation from your psychiatrist. Get your book bag, whatever you want in your book bag, get it out of here. You cannot live here anymore. You have to leave."
Andrew moved out, and Nancy began to question her decision.
I got out my Bible and I just said, "God, I think I heard you say that. If I was wrong, please let me know." And I just flipped it open, and it opened to Jonah. And I read it. And God said, "You're the people on the boat." They knew they were all going to die if Jonah wasn't thrown overboard. And it was like, so I was the one that had to do that? Me? The person who can't face the truth, much less tell it?
Nancy continued to pray for her son. For 3 days, they didn't know where he was or if he was alive. Then he called asking for help and agreed to join a program called Teen Challenge.
It just changed him, and he got him on his knees in total surrender. There is a healing time after addiction. Forgiveness is not trust.
Nancy's experiences inspired her to write her book, No One Visits the Mother of a Drug Addict.
We need Jesus to restore our soul. Not wear the clothes and the makeup and look like you got it together, but be vulnerable and say, "I am not doing well." No one visits the mother of a drug addict because you don't tell them. You don't tell them.
After years of healing, Andrew started a ministry called Take the City to help mobilize churches to reach people in their communities and see cities changed for God's glory.
We're working together now. That is quite interesting to work for your son, and quite a joy. And that connection is coming back. Just take it all, Lord, because you're going to weave it together to turn it into something so amazing, because that's your job, not ours. And our children are his job. When you give him something, he can do anything with it.
When we finally surrender and give our need to Jesus, he begins to work. Well, once again, Nancy shares her story in her book, No One Visits the Mother of a Drug Addict. Copies are available on Amazon.com. And if you or someone you know are in a situation similar to Nancy's and Andrew's, we want to help you out. Call us. Our number's toll-free. It's 1-800-700-7000. We will be there to pray alongside of you in whatever situation you're facing. We'll be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
This is our latest DVD. It's about the treasures of the Second Temple, and it's a wonderful mystery. Who done it? What happened to the temple treasures after the sack of the temple in AD 70? Well, they were taken to Rome, and for years I thought, well, they were just melted down to gold, and the Romans used it to build the Colosseum. It was wonderful to find, no, that's not what happened. The Romans took them as treasures, as trophies, and put them in a temple in Rome. And when Rome was sacked, they went to Carthage. When Carthage was defeated by the Byzantine Empire, they went to Constantinople. And then a Christian emperor said, I want these back in Jerusalem. They need to be in a church in Jerusalem. So what happened next? Well, you got to get the DVD to find out. It's yours for a gift of any dollar amount. Your gift will go into our other productions so you can have more archaeological stories about what people are discovering in Israel today. Do it. Call us 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from Romans. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. God bless you. We'll see you again.